Scott Schaefer here over at Honolulu Music Lessons Workshop. And today I want to talk to you about a couple of basics in drumming. First, we'll talk about grip. There is a right and a wrong way to hold the drumstick. And then we'll talk a little bit about getting a proper stroke. It's a basic stroke, drumstick stroke. And we'll talk about maybe a little bit about stick posture, basic posture. So first, let's cover grip. I like to use what's called a match grip. There's several different kinds of grip, but to me the sticks are the same and our hands are basically the same, opposite, but the same. So it makes sense that in the name of being as uniform as possible and ambidextrous, which is always a good thing when we're playing drums, to hold the sticks the same way, match grip. Now with the match grip, there's a couple of different kinds of match grip. One is where you have your thumb pointing up on the stick, and that would be like a French grip. And then the other is with the back of the hand facing up, and that's what's known as the German grip. Now, to me, I'll switch back and forth between the two, but I prefer mostly the German grip in that when you use this grip, your wrist has the largest range of motion. It moves the freest. Back of the hand facing up, and it's sort of like bouncing a ball. In drumming, it's challenging enough to play this instrument. So I like to think of a concept I have called the minimum effort, maximum results. And so we want to let the stick do the work, and by that I mean if I were just to drop the stick, it wants to bounce all by itself, it just drop it there. So we want to use that to our advantage. We want to work with bounce instead of forcing the sound into the drum. We want to let the stick bounce, stop, and catch it. So that's why I like to use the basketball analogy. It's very similar. The wrist motion, if we were to bounce a ball, would be like this, and put a stick on our hand. Bounce the stick like we would bounce a ball. Now, in terms of grip and how we hold the stick, we want to keep it as relaxed as possible. We want to keep our grip as relaxed as possible. Again, nothing should be forced. And so we want to make sure that this area stays open, this area of our hand called the fulcrum. If you have it like that's an indication that you're holding the stick too tight. And we want to have all our fingers on the stick, and we want to have a little bit out the back there because we want to have, balance in our stroke. That is key. So, if we go too far back, then there's too much weight forward, and the stick, doesn't want to bounce as freely. If we go too far forward, the opposite is true. We don't have enough weight. It's sort of like choking up on a baseball bat. So, with that in mind, that's really your basic grip, nice and loose to allow the stick to bounce. If I just let go of the stick, it wants to bounce. Minimum effort, maximum results. So let's talk a little bit about stroke. I think that covers the basic with grip. The stick is another thing I like to think of. Actually, I'll cover a little more. Is think of the stick as an extension of your hand. It's allows you reach different parts of the drum set. So now let's talk about posture. It's a good idea to sit, to have your back straight, and let's say our most neutral position, our most relaxed position we can be in while sitting would be with our hands. I don't know if you can see this, a good rule of thumb for hand position would have our hands parallel to the ground. We won't want to be too low because our hands will run into our legs, hit our legs while we're playing, and that's never any fun, and we're just working against ourselves when we're doing that. And if we're up, if the drum's too high, we're talking now in regards to our snare drum height and our posture. If the drum's too high, then we're kind of, we're creating this, the blood's going to rush down to our elbow, and that's not going to feel good. We want to be as as neutral a position as possible. So let's say we put our hands on our knees, and in the name of not running into our knees when we're playing, we want to bring our hands up just a little bit. So a good rule of thumb again is the forearms parallel to the ground. With our grip, the fulcrum open, all your fingers on the stick, and back of the hand facing up, because that's a natural wrist motion. I want to touch on range of motion. If we have our hand like with the thumb pointing up, that, like I said, sometimes that'll work good for some simple playing where we start to use our fingers a little bit, and that comes in later. But our range of motion is limited, as if, with the thumb pointing up, we've got this much range of motion. Say, we start there and end there. That's our range of motion. But we turn the back of the hand up, start there, and use a stick to demonstrate that range of motion. You can see it looks kind of like a little bit of a graph of sorts. That's it. That's as much as our wrist is going to move. So you can see that's about as high as I can go with my thumb pointing up. But if I have the back of my hand pointing up, look at that, I got this huge range of motion. So we want to use that to our advantage, Let the stick do the work. So let's talk about your basic stroke. There are a few different strokes, but basically you want to start, you don't want to play into the drum. That's never a good thing. On very rare occasions you can use a mute tone, but for your basic stroke, you want to have the stick start and end about half an inch off the drum. So our basic stroke would look like this. Okay, not playing into the drum. You can hear that, it chokes the sound. But starting and ending about a half inch off the drum. Back of the hands facing up. Starting and ending there. And not starting and ending like this. That creates tension. Minimum effort, maximum results. So that's basically it. You know what? I'm going to take a little more time, actually. I want to talk about traditional grip. If you've ever wondered where this grip came from, it's an interesting story. It actually came out of the Civil War before the invention of the drum set. In American drumming, everybody held the sticks like this, match grip. But again, before the invention of the drum set, American drummers used the drum to communicate in the battlefield. This was before telephones, electricity. That was it. The drum was nice and loud. And so I'll take the drum off here, and you can see that they had to march into battle. And I'd imagine the story was kind of related to me. They had to, with these big drums, and they're trying to march, and the drum's hitting them in the leg, and so they're like, well, this is really kind of strange. We've got to be able to run in the battlefield, get away, should we need to. So being able to run is paramount. And so what they did was they tilted the drum, those big drums, if you've ever seen those old pictures, so they could move their legs. And now, if you can imagine with the drum tilted like this is really where, to get a stroke, it's really awkward. My elbow's way up here. So that's when some brilliant, ingenious person said, what if we change the way we actually hold the stick? And we put it in our hand like this instead of like this, right? Now look at that, I can drop my elbow, and it's very comfortable. Now, they use singles to certain things meant, certain rhythms meant different things on the battlefield, and they wanted to be able to play those rhythms. Maybe this meant advance. And this meant retreat.